Time we got off our assets. Hello again, Vince Graham here with part 5 in a series describing an opportunity for South Carolina. Have you ever been to New Orleans? If so, you probably visited Jackson Square, the famous public space built along the Mississippi River. What makes it different from the typical waterfront park is it's surrounded by buildings on 3 sides. The St. Louis Cathedral and 2 museums on one side, flanked by the Pontalba buildings, historic landmarks which have shops below one of the oldest continuously rented apartments in the country. The problem with Jackson Square is in the 19th century a levee was built which blocks the view of the water if you're standing in the square. So if you are beside Andrew Jackson's statue, you have to walk across a busy street, up these stairs, through this parking lot, and over these railroad tracks to get this view of the river, which, with all due respect to New Orleans, can't match the view of Charleston Harbor. Another famous waterfront park is St. Mark's Square in Venice, Italy. Napoleon called it the finest drawing room in Europe. St. Mark's is actually 2 squares. The larger part is just over 2 acres, with the bell tower here. Here it is set up for the annual Venice Film Festival. The smaller square on the water is 1 acre, about the size of a football field. Among the nice things about it is that one can see the water when standing in the square. It's among the most beautiful plazas in the world. The only problem is that, like Charleston, when the tide is high and you get a big rainstorm, the square in Venice floods. Workmen have to install temporary boardwalks for people to get around. At least there's no cars to deal with in Venice. Charleston also has some memorable public spaces. Marion Square is one. At 6.5 acres, though, it's too big. It feels empty even when events are going on. Imagine how much better it would be if these sunbathing women were clustered closer together in a smaller space. My favorite square in the city is the College of Charleston Cistern. It's a great place to go to a concert, attend a graduation ceremony, or conduct a successful presidential campaign. So with that as prologue, the third idea following the path to liberty in the Lowcountry Botanical Gardens is the finest front porch in the South, to consist of a waterfront square, an observation tower, the Lowcountry headquarters of the National Park Service, and a war memorial and museum. The waterfront shouldn't be big. In fact, the cistern, outlined in red, or smaller portion of St. Mark's Square, shown in green, each about 1 acre in size, would be sufficient. Overlaid on the parking lot at Patriots Point, the plaza might be square-shaped like the cistern or elongated like St. Mark's Square in Venice. Climbing a tower is often a goal when people visit a place. An observation tower would be the equivalent of many great towers around the world. Some famous ones in Italy include the Campanile in Venice, mentioned earlier, the tower next to Siena City Hall, and the famous Leaning Tower of Pisa, which, by the way, you have to get a reservation and pay $19 to climb to the top. Other examples of famous places to climb include St. Paul's Cathedral in London and the Statue of Liberty, which doesn't charge to get into, but as at Fort Sumter, you have to pay to ride the ferry across. The Coit Tower is located in San Francisco's Telegraph Hill neighborhood, and even the isolated Cape Hatteras Lighthouse on North Carolina's Outer Banks offers a popular place to climb up to see a terrific view. Precedents for a tall tower on Charleston Harbor include the Catholic Cathedral, St. John the Baptist, St. Philip's Episcopal Church, and St. Matthew's Lutheran Church at 298 feet, the tallest spire in Charleston. Other precedents include the Morris Island and Sullivan's Island lighthouses, dockside condominiums, and the Columbus Street terminal cranes, 374 feet with booms raised. They are the tallest structures on the peninsula. Then, of course, there's our famous bridge. The highest point of the roadbed is 186 feet above the water, and the tops of the towers are 575 feet tall. The Carolina Tower, there it is, might be 350 feet tall, to be completed in 2020 to commemorate the 350th anniversary of the founding of South Carolina. It could take the form of a bell tower, and the bells rung on significant days such as New Year's Day, Independence Day, and Carolina Day. $12 admission would be a good value to climb to the top and take in the view, with a conservative estimate of 1.25 million visitors per year yields an annual revenue of $15 million. After taking in the fantastic view from the top of the tower, a visitor might stop in the Lowcountry headquarters of the National Park Service, where one could find information for nearby memorable sites including Fort Moultrie, Fort Sumter, Charlestown Landing, downtown house museums, nearby historic plantations, the Hunley Museum, the Gullah Geechee Heritage Corridor, and the Path to Liberty. The tower could also double as a war memorial, like the Revolutionary War Memorial at Bunker Hill in Boston, the 1812 Memorial on Lake Erie in Ohio, the World War I Memorial in Kansas City, which has an associated museum at its base. Our memorial might also have an affiliated museum, like the Bunker Hill Museum and the state-of-the-art National World War II Museum in New Orleans. The appropriate memorial on Charleston Harbor would of course be the National Civil War Memorial. And inspired by the dignity and grace of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, which lists the names of 58,260 Americans killed in that tragic war, the memorial on Charleston Harbor would list the names of 618,000 Americans who died in the Civil War. As mentioned earlier, during his campaign sweep through Charleston, President Obama spoke at the College of Charleston and attended a fundraiser at a home on the Battery. In his victory speech on November 4, 2008, he fondly recalled the porches of Charleston. Patriots Point being located in Mount Pleasant, the mayor of the town, Billy Swale, sits on the board of the Patriots Point Development Authority. Perhaps he could join with Mayor Joe Riley and Congressman Jim Clyburn, both of whom have great relationships with the president, along with some new leaders representing South Carolina like Tim Scott and Nikki Haley, to invite our nation's leader to a groundbreaking ceremony commemorating peace and progress to take place on April 12, 2011, the 150th anniversary of the start of the Civil War. It is time we got off our assets. I'll leave you with a quote from Victor Hugo: "There is nothing like a dream to create the future." The next segment will discuss culturally significant performing arts venues. Thanks a lot for watching. Vince Graham, signing off.